never ever done anything like this on my channel in the past to this extent, and to be quite honest with you, I'm a little bit nervous. But what we are doing is we're doing a full month's worth of extreme grocery budget meals. I got a request a couple months ago to do a video like this, and I have been planning for this non-stop since. So we're going to head over to Walmart today. It's just the cheapest grocery store in my area, and I'm going to be filling up my cart with only $45 worth of grocery items. I'm going to be strategic about what I place in my cart, and I'm really going to be trying to buy items that stretch far. I'm also going to be trying to make these meals this month as nutrient rich, healthy, and as delicious as possible. It's definitely going to be a challenge, but let's go head to the store now. I'm bringing you along with me. While we are at the store, I'm going to be really careful about what I place in my cart to get us through this month. First, I'm headed to the meat area, and I'm going to price out the different meats to kind of see what will fit in my budget for this month. First, I would really like to have a pound of sausage. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this sausage yet, but it will fit in my budget, so I'm going to toss it in my cart. And while I'm in the meat area, I would also love to have some chicken. I priced out all of the chicken, and I noticed this huge bag of chicken drumsticks. It's a 5-pound bag. It comes out to only being $1.18 a pound. That is just an unbeatable price, so I'm going to place this big bag in my cart. I'm really excited about this find. Next, I would love to have some canned tomato products this month. I was going to get this normal can of diced tomatoes, but I did notice the petite diced tomatoes are the same price. I just love cooking with petite diced tomatoes a little bit more than like the normal diced tomatoes. I just like the size better. I also need a can of diced tomatoes with green chilies. The can of Rotel was way out of my budget, being over $1. I am so glad I looked above because I found this hot off-brand can for only 88 cents. All the other off-brand cans for like the mild and the medium were 96 cents. So I'm going with the hot. I don't think it will be too hot at all. I also need a can of tomato paste, so I'll toss that in my cart. I would also like some peas this month, and I decided to price out the frozen peas versus like the can of peas, and I'm so glad that I priced them out because I am going to be saving about 34 cents going with a can of peas, and it's definitely worth the money savings for this month. Next, I'm going to toss a couple boxes of pasta into my cart. Now I'm off to the mac and cheese area. Always look at the price per ounce when buying anything. It's normally in smaller font right next to the regular price. As you see, the spiral macaroni and cheese is 10.5 cents per ounce, but the regular elbows are only 7.9 cents per ounce. And then if you look at the big name brand mac and cheese, it's 17.1 cents per ounce. So the money savings is just crazy there. And then this might seem a little odd, but I am grabbing 3 bags of ramen noodles. I kind of have a creative idea to use these ramen noodles up for this month. Normally, I always think to grab my bouillon cubes down the soup aisle. I was looking at the prices, and I noticed this Knorr brand of bouillon cubes for 6 cubes is about $1.47. That's out of my budget today, but I am so glad that I remembered down the Hispanic foods aisle, they sell the same brand of bouillon cubes with 8 cubes instead of 6, and it's only $1.08. That's a really big money savings, and I do find that they are super flavorful still. Next, I would love to grab a bag of Spanish rice, and a lot of stores, they've been making the identical products to like the big name brands just for a smaller price. It's like the same ounces in each of the bags, but just a better price. Like I said, you're totally going to get a kick out of this one, but normally I always grab a block of cheese over like the pre-shredded cheese, because with the pre-shredded cheese you almost always pay significantly more money because you're paying for them to shred it. But for today, I saw the pre-shredded cheese was 27 cents cheaper, and so I'm going with the pre-shredded cheese today. So I just thought that was a little bit funny. But next, I'm grabbing a bag of stir-fry veggies. I looked around at the different prices, and I noticed the deluxe bag was cheaper, so I'm going with the deluxe bag. There's a great variety of different veggies in that. And then you can't go wrong with a bag of carrots, so I'm throwing the carrots into my cart. Before I check out, here's a little rundown of everything that I'm picking up today to hopefully stay in my budget for this month. First, a 5-pound bag of russet potatoes, my bag of Spanish rice, and then a frozen frozen seasoning blend of veggies. I love this seasoning blend. And then my frozen peas, and then a can of corn I also grabbed. Smaller can of diced tomatoes, cream of mushroom soup, larger can of diced tomatoes with green chilies and tomato paste. Then I have my biscuits, ramen noodles, sausage, and then I also grabbed my carrots, of course. Then a bag of lentils. I'm excited about those lentils and rice. Then I have my spaghetti and my chicken drumsticks. Then I picked up a package of hot dogs and frozen spinach. I also have my bouillon cubes and some shell pasta. And then I have my box of macaroni and cheese and pepperoni, along with an onion, 2 cans of pasta sauce, my mozzarella cheese, tortillas, and then I have my garlic, pinto beans, Jiffy corn muffin mix, and then my stir-fry veggie mix. I am so excited. Let's get home and let's get to cooking this month. The first dinner we're getting started on this month is this seasoned chicken and rice casserole. I have 2 cups of hot water right here. Add 1 of our bouillon cubes right into that water, kind of stir it around for a minute and let that bouillon cube get dissolved. So now we kind of have like broth. You'll need about 1 cup of white rice for this recipe. Make sure it's uncooked rice. And then this is totally optional. Some people like to do it, some people don't, but I'm just going to rinse my rice off just in a strainer over the sink right now. Now grab a 9x13 baking dish, spray it with nonstick spray, then add your broth right in there. Next you're going to add your rice in, and then you're going to add the seasonings in. For the seasonings, I'm using salt, pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, paprika, and Italian seasoning. I am using seasonings in all of these meals for this month. They're kind of like pantry staple seasonings, but besides seasonings and oil, I am using everything that we grabbed from the store. After you add all of your seasonings in, give this a really good whisk to kind of combine the ingredients all together. Now I'm going to sort my chicken. I have my big bag of chicken drumsticks right here. I'm going to place some of the drumsticks right into my casserole, and then I'm going to place some in a bag and then some in a smaller bag. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the rest of the drumsticks, but like I said, I'm placing some into the casserole, and then I'm going to store some in my fridge or my freezer for later use throughout this month. And then over the top of the chicken casserole, I am going to season the chicken with a little bit more salt, pepper, Italian seasoning, garlic powder, onion powder, and paprika. You could always use different seasonings if you'd like, but these seasonings are really good in this casserole. Cover this tightly with foil and bake this in a preheated oven to 350 degrees for about 60 minutes. After the baking time is up, remove the foil and bake it for about 5 more minutes. Here's what this casserole looks like out of the oven, and here's what it looks like plated up. That chicken is fall apart tender, and that seasoned rice is just seasoned so well. I did serve my little ones plates with some peas on the side. I just steamed those peas up. I used about 1/4 of the can of peas, and then this chicken casserole made so much. We actually had it for leftovers for the next day, so this was kind of like a cook once, eat twice meal. There was plenty left over. We used about half the first day and then half the second day. And then to store the peas, I just saved them in a little glass container like this in my fridge. The same with the casserole. For dinner on day 3 this month, we are having a fun pizza night, so grab a sheet pan, line it with parchment paper or foil. I'm adding 4 of our tortillas down, and then I'm going to kind of arrange them. Then over the top of the tortillas, I am spraying them with a little bit of oil spray. Then I'll flip the tortillas over. This is just going to help so the backside of the tortillas get nice and crispy while they're baking. Now I have 1 of our cans of pasta sauce. I'm only using about 3/4 cup of the pasta sauce. I'll save the rest in a glass container in my fridge for a future recipe, but just brush the sauce all over the top of the tortilla. Now sprinkle the top of your tortilla pizzas with a little bit of the cheese, and then I do want to let you know this is kind of like a spin-off of the French bread pizza recipe in my cookbook. My cookbook is full of delicious, easy, affordable recipes if you don't have one yet, but over the top of the cheese I'm adding some of our pepperonis, and then over the top of the pepperonis I'll add a little bit more cheese and Italian seasoning just for added flavor. This will bake in a preheated oven to 425 degrees for about 10 minutes. Once the baking time is up, you can enjoy your pizzas. Don't they just look so beautiful? Dinner on day 3 was a complete hit in my house. Everybody loved it. I served my little ones pizza alongside of one of the carrots that I cut up into smaller pieces from the bag of carrots. I also served it with a little bit of ranch to dip the pizza in. This one didn't cross over to day 4's dinners. This was just day 3's dinners. There wasn't enough for leftovers at all. We loved it. For our dinner tonight on day 4, I'm deciding to make this ramen stir fry. It really sounds good. To a pot of boiling water, add in all 3 packets of the ramen. Do not add in the seasoning packets. Go ahead and save those seasoning packets to the side, but just cook that ramen until those noodles are tender. Now over to this pan, I'm adding in half of our bag of the stir fry veggies. I'm also adding in a tablespoon of olive oil. Just cook those veggies until they are tender. But now that my ramen is tender, I am going to strain the ramen and I am going to set our ramen to the side. Now back over to those stir fry veggies. Now that the stir fry veggies are tender, I'm adding in one of our packets of the chicken flavor ramen. Do not add in all 3, just add in one of those seasoning packets. You could use the other seasoning packets for different recipes. I'm also adding in 1/4 cup of low sodium soy sauce and then this drained ramen. Give this a stir, let it cook together for a couple of minutes, then you could serve this quick and easy dinner up. Here's what dinner looks like. This dinner was absolutely delicious. It's packed full of so many different nutrient-rich veggies. My husband said I need to make it more often. This also made for dinners for days 4 and 5, so we had leftovers for the next day's dinners, which was amazing. So this one was a cook once, eat twice meal. We absolutely loved it. It was so good. Now for day 6 this week, we are making this pizza pasta. So to a pot of boiling water on the stove, add in 1/2 pound of our shell pasta. Just cook that pasta according to the package instructions. And while I do have our pasta cooking away, I am going to get started on the pepperoni. I'm using the remaining pepperoni that we didn't use from the pizza night. I'm cutting the pepperoni into smaller kind of like bite-sized pieces. This is going to get the pepperoni to kind of like go further, and then it's just going to be a lot easier to eat when it is in smaller pieces just like this. Now that my shell pasta is tender, I am just going to strain it just over the sink like this. And then I am going to add in about 2 cloves of our garlic. I'm mincing the garlic in. I'll stir the garlic around for about 15 seconds. This will make the pasta extra flavorful. It is just going to add a lot of added flavor for such a minimal cost. It really is going to taste a lot more elegant and kind of high-end, adding that garlic in there just fresh like that. Now I added our cut up pepperoni along with 1/2 teaspoon of salt, pepper, and Italian seasoning. I am going to give this a stir so those pepperoni pieces kind of separate. Next, I'm going to add in the remaining pasta sauce from our pizza night, so add that right in there. I am going to give this a stir. I'll also cover it with a lid and let it simmer for about 5 minutes, stirring it occasionally. Now that the cooking time is up, I'm going to add in the remaining mozzarella cheese from our pizza night. Give this a stir, let the cheese melt down, and then you could serve this easy dinner up. This dinner comes together in minutes. It is so quick and easy to throw together. You have the protein in there from all of that pepperoni. There's so much pepperoni in it. We actually had this for dinner on day 6 and 7. So we had it for 2 nights dinners just because it really did make so much food. We loved it and we enjoyed eating it. I am so thrilled right now. We made it to week 2 dinner. So this is week 2 dinners, dinner day 1. We are making corn dog muffins. I have my hot dogs I cut into smaller pieces. Now grab a bowl, add your Jiffy corn muffin mix right into that bowl. Since I don't have any milk on hand, since I didn't buy it with my groceries, I'm adding in 1/3 cup of water instead of milk for my corn muffins. I do have some eggs on hand, so I added in an egg, but if you don't have eggs on hand, I have made these corn muffins without without eggs, and they turn out quite well without an egg, but whisk this well. Now grab a muffin pan and spray your muffin pan with non-stick spray. Add a scoop or two of your muffin mix into each of your corn muffins, and then you're going to place about 3 hot dog pieces into each of your corn muffins. This makes for a ton of food. Bake this in your preheated oven to 400 degrees for about 15 to 20 minutes. I also did sprinkle a little bit of paprika over the top for added flavor and color. These corn dog muffins make for a great, quick, easy dinner. We had about 3 of them left over, so not quite enough for like a full leftover dinner, but I'm sure we will eat them up on a random leftover night this week. Whenever I make pinto beans, I really like to batch make them, so I like to make a larger amount all at once and then use them throughout recipes. So that is what we are doing now. I'm just sorting through the beans. Sometimes you'll find like a little rock in your beans, but that is very unlikely, especially in these bags from the store. But now I'm just rinsing the beans super well to make sure they are clean. Another thing you could do is you could soak your beans overnight. I totally didn't remember to do that though. But now to this large pot, I'm adding my beans in there. Then I'm adding in 9 cups of water, or you could use broth if you like. And then I'm going to add in my seasonings. You could use any seasonings that you like or have on hand. I'm just using 2 teaspoons of pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, chili powder, cumin, and oregano. But give this a stir, and you're going to let this simmer on your stove for about 3 to 4 hours. I like to let it simmer for closer to 4 hours just so those beans are super tender. I just turn it on a low heat and I kind of forget about them, and then after the cooking time, you'll find your beans like super tender, super soft, and so easy to cook with. I love batch making beans like this. This whole 1 pound bag of beans made cups and cups of beans. I could use these beans in so many different recipes. Now we're getting started on dinner day 2 this week, and we are using up some of our pinto beans. So to a pan on the stove, add a tablespoon of olive oil, then add a small amount of our onion. Let the onion cook for a couple minutes. We are making this rice and bean skillet right now, but after the onions are through cooking, add in a couple cloves of minced garlic. This is how much garlic we have left, a ton left, but just let that garlic cook together for about 15 seconds. Now I'm adding in 2 1/3 cup of water. Next I'm adding in 1 cup of uncooked white rice along with 1 bouillon cube. Then I'm adding in our can of diced tomatoes and green chilies. This is just like that hot can. Next I'm adding in 1 cup of cooked pinto beans. I'm just using the pinto beans that we cooked up a little bit earlier today. Just add in about a cup of those, and I'll save the rest of the pinto beans. There's a ton left in a container in my fridge. And then for the seasonings, I'm using a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of pepper, teaspoon of chili powder, garlic powder, onion powder, and a little bit of cumin. I just added a dash in there because sometimes cumin is a little bit overpowering. Give this a stir, scrape the flavorful bits off the bottom of the pan if there is any. Then you're going to let this simmer covered for about 20 minutes. You do want to stir this occasionally while it's simmering, and if you do notice the liquid line gets too low, add in about 1/4 cup more water at a time until your rice is fluffy, beautiful, and tender. Then you could serve your dinner up. This was so good. We topped ours with a little bit of black pepper. When my husband and I were struggling to make ends meet, we used to make this dinner all of the time because we always had some beans in the fridge that we'd cook up like earlier in the week or earlier in the month. So we made this all the time, and this was another cook once, eat twice meal. So this is actually for dinners day 2 and 3. For dinner on day 4, we're making this chicken veggie pasta. So to a pot on the stove, I'm adding in 3 chicken legs. Next, I'm adding in about 6 cups of water, and then I'm going to season the water just with a little bit of salt, pepper, Italian seasoning, garlic powder, onion powder, and paprika. This is going to help give the chicken a lot of added flavor. Then I'm just going to let this chicken simmer on my stove for about 25 minutes or until it is fall apart tender. And then once my chicken is fall apart tender, all I'm going to do is I'm going to remove my chicken to a bowl, and then I'm going to shred it up separately. And then I have a bunch of chicken broth in my pot now. So instead of discarding it and wasting it, I'm going to save it in a pot in my fridge, and I'm sure I could use this for a soup in the future. Now into the same pot that the chicken was just cooked in, I'm going to add in about a tablespoon of olive oil. Next, I'm adding in a small amount of our onion along with 1 of our carrots that I diced. I'll cook this together for for about 4 minutes. After 4 minutes of cooking, I'm adding in half of our can of tomato paste, and then I'll stir this together for about a minute just to get that tomato paste combined with the rest of the ingredients. Now I'm going to add in 4 cups of water. After that, add in the other half a pound of our shell pasta. So now I no longer have any shells left. Now to season this up so it's not bland, I'm adding in salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, Italian seasoning, and I'm adding in the last of my oregano. I have had this little container of oregano for about 5 years now. I've been using it for 5 years, so it has lasted me a while. I'll give this a stir and I'm going to bring it up to a boil. Once this does start to boil, I am going to be adding in 1 cup of my frozen spinach. I have plenty of spinach left in my bag for future recipes. I'm going to let this simmer on my stove for about 15 minutes or until the pasta shells are tender. Once your pasta is tender and everything is cooked through, all you have to do is stir in that cooked chicken. I just shredded my chicken into smaller pieces, but just add it in there, let the chicken warm through, and then you could serve this beautiful dinner up. This dinner was absolutely delicious. It's full of so many different nutrients from that spinach. It has so much iron in it. It has so much protein in it. This dinner was a wonderful dinner for dinner day 4 this week. And I do want to let you know, on dinner day 5 this week, we had some of this for leftovers. Not quite enough for all of us to have it for leftovers, but we also had the corn muffin hot dogs. So we had the corn dog muffins and this for leftovers on dinner day 5, and that was so scrumptious, so delicious. This is so nutrient rich and amazing. I'm about to get started on dinner. We are on dinner day 6 and I can't wait to make this. We are making this amazing Spanish rice soup. To a large pot on the stove, add in a tablespoon of olive oil. Then you're going to add in half of the seasoning blend bag of frozen veggies. Save the other half. We're just using half. Give it a stir. Let this cook on your stove for about 7 minutes. Once the cooking time is up, you're going to add in 1 cup of our cooked pinto beans. These are just the pinto beans that I have in the fridge. Then add in half of our can of corn, not the whole can, just half. Then a tablespoon of taco seasoning. I'm just using taco seasoning from my pantry, but if you have my cookbook and you want to make like a homemade version of taco seasoning, you could make the homemade version in the substitutions area in my cookbook. Next, I'm adding in this package of Spanish rice. Then go ahead and add in your water, or you could use broth. I'm using 6.5 cups of water. Let this simmer on your stove for about 12 minutes covered, and make sure you stir it occasionally so the rice doesn't stick to the bottom of your pot. Once it is through cooking, your house will be smelling unbelievable. You will not believe how budget friendly this dinner is. This actually made dinner for us for days 6 and 7. There is so much to this soup. It is so filling, delicious, and hearty. It was absolutely amazing way to end this week too. Now we're on week 3, so to kick week 3 off, we are starting it very strong with this veggie pot pie. I'm ripping into my bag of potatoes, and I'm going to be using 3 potatoes for this recipe. I peeled them and I diced them. I also diced 1 large carrot. Add your carrot and your potatoes into a pot of boiling water. We're going to cook them for about 8 to 9 minutes. You want them to get soft just because they're not going to completely cook in the oven and you don't want them crunchy. But now that my potatoes and my carrot is fork tender, I am just going to strain them and I'm going to add them into a large bowl. Now into that same large bowl, go ahead and add in the other half a can of the corn, then add in 1 can of cream of mushroom soup and the remaining amount of peas that we have left. After you add your peas in there, you're going to add in a small amount of onion. Onion goes a long way, so a little bit really stretches. I only bought 1 for our entire month and it really is stretching us far. I also added in 2 cloves of garlic along with a half a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of pepper, and then I added in a half a teaspoon of paprika and Italian seasoning. Give this a good stir. If you have other pantry items on hand or anything in the freezer, you could throw it into this pot pie as well, but I wanted to stick with the items that we grabbed from the grocery store. Once you're through stirring this up, grab a 9x13 baking dish and you're going to spray it with nonstick spray. Add your casserole right in there and spread it out super duper well. To make the crust for our pot pie, we are using our biscuits. So unravel your biscuits and then cut them into smaller pieces. Place them all over the top and bake this in a preheated oven to 375 degrees for about 25 to 30 minutes or until the biscuits are super golden brown and beautiful on the top. This dinner was absolutely delicious. This made for dinner for days 1 and 2 on week 3. It is so good, so flavorsome. I asked my little ones and my husband what they thought of it, and they didn't even realize how budget friendly it was. So this is such a great affordable dinner option. It's packed full of so many different veggies and it's so good. The dinner that we are making for day 3 is this lentil potato soup, and I am over the top excited about it. I got my bag of lentils and I measured them out. I wanted to see how much was in the bag of lentils. We have a little under 3 cups, so that's great. I'm going to use it in a few different recipes, but I'm using 1 cup of lentils for this recipe. I'm just starting out by rinsing my lentils in water. Sometimes lentils could be a little dirty, so that's why I like to do this. This isn't 100% necessary, but it is good to do, I'd say. Now that I'm through rinsing my lentils, I'm just looking through them a little bit, but overall they really do look good. To a large pot on the stove, I added a tablespoon of olive oil. Now that my oil is hot, I'm adding the remaining bag of onions and veggies in. I'm also adding in 2 cloves of garlic. I cooked that on my stove for about 7 minutes, then I added in 1 diced carrot. Let the carrot cook for 3 more minutes. Now I'm adding in the remaining half a can of tomato paste. Now add in all of your seasonings. I do have all of the seasonings and measurements listed for this whole month of meals below for you, but I'm just adding in some basic seasonings: salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, paprika, all the good seasonings. But I gave this a stir. Now I'm adding in my 1 cup of lentils. I'm also adding in 1 bouillon cube. This will give it added flavor. These bouillon cubes have really been stretching and I'm so thrilled about that. Next, I'm adding in the broth that we saved from last week's chicken and pasta dish. I knew this would come in handy, so I'm so glad I didn't waste that broth. It is so nutrient rich. I'm also adding in 5 cups of water because I need a little bit more liquid in it. Then I added in 3 cubed potatoes and a half a cup of fresh spinach. Let this simmer on your stove covered for about 25 minutes. You do want to stir it occasionally, but after the cooking time is up, you are going to be so excited about this dinner. Those lentils are such a great meat substitute. They are so high in protein. This dinner is so delicious. It has so much spinach in it, so many different veggies. The lentils are so good. This made for dinners days 3 and 4. I am so glad that I got so much leftovers from this dinner. It really helped us out a lot for dinner day 4. Now for dinner day 5, you can't go wrong with classic spaghetti. So to a pot of boiling water, add in your spaghetti. I'm not using the whole box of spaghetti. I'm using about 90% of it, not the whole box. I'll save some of it maybe for a future recipe, but I'm using most of it. Like I said, not completely all of it. Cook your spaghetti according to the package instructions, then go ahead and strain it. I'm adding it back into the pot that it was cooked in. Now I'm adding in a clove of garlic. The garlic is really going to make your noodles a lot more flavorsome, and it's going to take like basic spaghetti up a notch, so it really is super good. Now I'm adding in the whole can of pasta sauce. I added a little bit of water in there to get any remaining pasta sauce out of the can. Now I'm seasoning this up a little bit with a dash of salt, pepper, and Italian seasoning. Give this a stir, let it simmer, and then you could serve your spaghetti up. We ate all of this spaghetti. We had hardly any left over, but we pretty much just finished it all that night. It was super duper good. My little ones absolutely love spaghetti. This one was a total winner. It is so budget friendly, but really works out nicely for an easy weeknight meal. For dinner on day 6 this week, we are getting started on the spaghetti bean soup. So to a large pot on the stove, add in a tablespoon of olive oil, then add in a small amount of our onion, just dice it, let it cook for a couple minutes. I was a little bit worried by this point of the month we'd be tired of the meals, maybe not eating enough or just not really enjoying them, but I am here to tell you we're fully enjoying every single meal. They are full of so much flavor, not lacking in flavor at all. Also, we feel like we're eating enough and we're not feeling hungry after the meals. There's plenty of protein and they're so good. So I'm excited to tell you that. But after I cooked the onion, I added in some garlic. I also added in one of the flavor packets from the ramen. I also added in 9 cups of water and 1 cup of pinto beans, and then 28 ounces of diced tomatoes. For the seasonings I'm using, it's a teaspoon of chili powder, half a teaspoon of pepper, half a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, and onion powder. Now I'm adding in a half a cup more of our frozen spinach. This frozen spinach is not done yet, and I'm excited about that. I'm also adding in one of our bouillon cubes, and the last thing I'm adding in is the remaining spaghetti from my box. I'll break the spaghetti up into smaller pieces so it's easier to eat in a soup. I'm going to let this simmer covered for about 15 minutes, stirring it occasionally. Here's what your spaghetti bean soup will look like once it is finished simmering. Isn't that beautiful? I feel like you could get this like at a fancy restaurant and they charge you like $90 for it. Well, I've never been to a restaurant like that, but I'm just thinking. Anyway, here's what it looks like. It is so good. We had this for dinner day 6 and 7. As you see, there is a ton left over in this pot. We had plenty for dinner the next night. This was an amazing meal to end week 3. Can you hardly believe we are on week 4 now? I can't believe it, and it is going pretty well. I realized I haven't used any of the sausage yet, so for this first dinner, we are making this sausage veggie stir fry. I added a half a pound of our sausage to this pan. I also added 2 peeled and diced russet potatoes, then the remaining stir fry veggies, a small amount of our onion, 1 bouillon cube, and now I'm just going to break the sausage up. Then I added in a half a cup of water. I'll let this cook together for about 15 minutes, stirring it occasionally until that sausage is cooked through. Now that the sausage is cooked through, I'm adding in a little bit of Creole seasoning. I'm also adding in a little bit of salt and pepper. Give it a stir, and then you could serve this up. This dinner is one of those dinners that just came together in minutes. We actually ate this entire dinner this night. We had absolutely no leftovers. It was so good. Those veggies are just perfect cooked like this with the sausage. I served my little ones with an apple on the side that we had on hand, and they dipped theirs in ketchup as well. Now we're on the second dinner this week, and we are making a sausage mac and cheese. So to a pot of boiling water, add in your pasta. I'm just using our box of macaroni and cheese. Just don't add the cheese packet in yet. Cook the macaroni according to the package instructions. Now that my macaroni is cooked through, just strain it and set your macaroni to the side. To the same pot the macaroni was cooked in, add the other half a pound of sausage. Just break your sausage up and cook it through. I was realizing at this point that I should have broken up the sausage recipes further in the month, but I really did just forget that I had the sausage on hand until this last week of the month. But now that my sausage is cooked through, I'm just removing any excess grease from my pot. Now I'm going to add in the cooked pasta that we just had cooked up. I'm also adding in the cheese packet that the pasta came with. This is really going to add quite a bit of wonderful flavor. I'm also adding in our can of petite diced tomatoes. This can has garlic and oil in it, so it's really going to enhance the flavor of this dish. Give it a stir. Once it's all combined and cooked together for a few minutes, you could serve it up. Here's what dinner for day 2 looks like. My husband was raving and raving about this. He didn't realize it was basically like a box of macaroni and cheese, sausage, and tomatoes. It really tastes exceptionally good. It is amazing. I served my little one's plate with apples. We also had plenty of leftovers for day 3, which I was really excited about. So this was another cook once, eat twice meal. So good. For dinner on day 4, I was a little worried that we were running out of food, but trust me, we got this. To a large pot on the stove, add in the remaining onion along with a tablespoon of olive oil. Now I'm adding in the last carrot that we have left. I kind of shredded it, and if you shred your carrots like this, they kind of go further. They also have a really nice texture, so that is what I did for the last carrot. It looks like a ton more carrots than it actually is. It was just a large, huge carrot that I shredded. Next, add in a dash of salt salt and pepper, and you're going to let this cook together for about 7 minutes. Carrots have so many different vitamins and nutrients in them, so if you could cook them into your meal like this, it really is wonderful because carrots are just so inexpensive. Now I'm adding in 1 cup of lentils. Lentils are just a powerhouse of protein. I'm also adding in a cup of pinto beans. Make sure you freeze your pinto beans after 5 days in the fridge just so they don't go bad. They stay super well in the freezer. Next, add in your 4 peeled and diced russet potatoes, remaining 1/4 cup of white rice, and then a ramen flavored packet, 1 bouillon cube, and then you're going to add in about 5 cups of water. I added a dash of salt and pepper in here, and then I noticed that I had a couple garlic cloves left. I ended up chopping up my garlic cloves because I could not find my garlic press at all. I wonder if one of my little ones did something to it. I gave this a little stir, and then I realized that I had a little bit of spinach left on hand, so now I'm adding in a little bit more spinach, and I'm going to let this simmer on my stove for about 25 minutes, stirring it occasionally. I'll be the first to admit this isn't the most beautiful meal in the world, but oh man, is it good. It is full of so much protein from the pinto beans and the lentils. It is so delicious. After we had our bowls, we were not hungry for any more just because it was that filling. We had plenty more for leftovers the next day though, so this made for dinners days 4 and 5. It was so good. Now for dinner on day 6, we are making these loaded chicken burritos. I have 2 chicken legs left, so add your chicken legs into a large pot of water. Then add in any seasonings that you like. I'm just using some salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, chili powder, those type of seasonings, but you could use any seasonings you like. I'm kind of going for like taco seasonings just because these are going to be in some like taco burrito type of things. But let this simmer on your stove for about 25 minutes or until the chicken's cooked through. I did look at my potatoes and I did notice that I have 4 potatoes left. I'm just going to peel and cube those potatoes into smaller pieces. I'm so glad I was able to use that whole big bag of potatoes. Now that my chicken's cooked through, I'm just removing the chicken and I'm going to shred it up. Now into the same pot that chicken was cooked in, I am adding my lentils. This is 1 cup of uncooked lentils. I'll bring these lentils up to a simmer, and once they do start to simmer, I'll add those potatoes that I cubed right into that pot. I'll let this simmer together for about 20 minutes, simmering the potatoes in that chicken broth with the seasonings and the lentils. It's just going to give everything so much great flavor. Once the simmering time is up, just strain your potatoes and lentils, add them back into that same pot. Next, you're going to add in the remaining pinto beans. I had about 2 cups left, so I added the 2 cups in there. Then I added in my shredded chicken along with 2 cloves of garlic and my seasonings. I'm going to be honest with you, I'm a little nervous saying this, but I was in tears at this point. I really didn't think I was going to be able to make it throughout the whole month. I did this around filming like my normal videos just to give you guys as many recipes as I could give you throughout the month, but we did this behind the scenes, and let me tell you, it was definitely a lot of work. I was in tears making this last meal because it really was quite a bit of work throughout this whole month, but I'm so glad I was able to do it. I remembered I had some spinach on hand, so I added in the last of the spinach. I let this simmer for a little bit. Now it's time to assemble into the burritos. Just add your mixture into the burritos. This made for dinner for day 6 and 7 for us. This made so many burritos. I actually ran out of tortillas. There was so much filling. My husband and I had it for burrito bowls on one day. And like I said, I was in tears at this point. I was thinking about you guys a lot, and I was thinking about how grateful I truly am for you. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for sharing it with your friends, and thank you for being by my side. I'll always be by your guys' side, and I'm always here for you. I really am so grateful for you, and from the bottom of my heart, thanks for being here for me. You mean the world to me and my family. I would really love to have you over here, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next video like this. Bye for now.